Silicon Valley, the facade at the Jung Institute, and the interior of Hillview Branch Library. Trachtenberg was a 2023 fellow at Laba Bay, a laboratory for Jewish culture, where she explored the theme of taboo through studying Torah and Talmud. Based in San Francisco, she has been represented by Catherine Clark Gallery since 2021. Please welcome Amy Trachtenberg.
Thank you. Welcome again, everybody. And thank you to Gravity for that. If you can't hear or I'm not speaking well, please let me know. Thank you to the museum for bringing us all together. A few months ago, I had a health thing, so my speech is a little bit compromised, so bear with me on that, and that I'm not the amazing and funny speaker that Tiffany is. So double bear. And also, I will read a lot of this. In 2021, I was invited to create an artwork for an exhibit that was to pay homage to the artists Ruth Asawa and Annie Albers. The show was to be centered on the legacy of Black Mountain College. These two women had long been in my canon of art mothers of invention. Titled Open Field, and it was to be my first show at San Francisco-based Catherine Clark Gallery. To offer a little background on Black Mountain College, it was a liberal arts school set in rural South Carolina at the height of the Great Depression. Founded by dissident educators, their unorthodox approach viewed teaching as a collaborative experiment, a learning process where both students and faculties would live close to the land. A handful of Bauhaus refugees fleeing from Nazi Germany would lend their experience to this radical pedagogy, striving for a utopian environment. They would espouse learning by doing and according to one's own timeline. While not specifically aware of such a place called Black Mountain, I knew that it would have been a kind of heaven for me. I was a disengaged high school student, interested mainly in French, in dance, and in art. At 16, I was coaxed by family friends up to the Sierra Nevada to build a geodesic dome. It reinforced my proclivity for such a place as Black Mountain, where in the mid-century, it had included the amazing group of artists that was Robert Rauschenberg, Merce Cunningham, John Cage, Elaine de Kooning, and Buckminster Fuller, and so many other important artists to me. In the earlier 20th century, most art schools' practices were closed to women. The predominantly male environments did allow eventually Annie Albers and Ruth Asawa to go into the weaving and textile studios, where they continued to do significant works. A similarity I have been struck by between the two of them is that they had both been uprooted by anti-Semitism and racism. In Berlin in 1899, Albers, who was born Anneliese Elsa Freda Fleischmann in Berlin, she was raised as a secular Jew in a German family. Despite her having converted to Christianity, Albers was still unsafe in Nazi Germany. Rather quickly, with her husband Joseph, they left for America, where he then became the chief educator at the newly minted Black Mountain College. At the outbreak of World War II, the California-born Ruth Asawa at age 16, with her entire family, were forcibly removed from their working farm in their home due to the U.S. anti-Japanese hysteria. The entire Asawa family had to endure years of internment in a relocation camp. I'm sure many of you know these histories, but there's probably a few that don't. With wire, thread, and rope, the weaver and the sculptor made significant works once freed from their confinement. Corresponding to my own tendencies toward non-traditional materials, like many others, I've been deeply influenced by them. I was raised in Pittsburgh in a large secular Jewish family with left-wing parents. With my own inventive artist mother and my father, who is in the schmata business. Does anyone not know? Schmata is the clothing business, or the rag trade. With his desire to even the playing field between owners and workers, my father attempted, though unsuccessfully, to unionize his fellow traveling salesmen. The seasonal remnants of his work gave us stacks of multi-textured, multicolored swatches that would pile on the floor, providing puzzles and things to organize. It combined our play with our grandmother's stitching and crocheting them into blankets. This is much the raw material of many Jewish households. Many among us here in this space discovered the depths of our Jewishness by our sense as outsiders. At different times, this hit me as a child, celebrating Hanukkah, not Christmas, latkes, not Yorkshire pudding, and no Christmas trees allowed. In the house across the street, the rooms were hung with figures and portraits, quite puzzling. Nailed to the bedroom walls were crucifixes, Madonnas, and vessels for holy water. One unforgettable day, as I was a 7 or 8 year old, in a scuffle with my best friend, she blurted out in one long, incomprehensible word, "You killed the Lord our God, Jesus Christ." I don't know how long it took me to hear what she said, and for many years to understand where it came from. Heard such things over the years, which were not, I believe, intended at all as anti-Semitic, but just a way that there are differences that I took time to understand. In my 20s, I was studying painting and drawing in Paris, and in my final year at the École des Beaux-Arts, I was at a talk. There I met the American artist Sheila Hicks, known for her sculptural work in fiber. A generation earlier, Sheila had studied at Yale with both Annie and Joseph Albers. On the spot, she offered me a job in her Paris studio where I worked intermittently for 2 years, wrapping countless coils of saturated yarn into beautiful suspended sculptures. I traveled with her and was involved in installing several large pieces. So in the months before I knew what I would make for the Catherine Clark exhibit, Open Field, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I underwent lung surgery. So at the height of COVID, and in the same year as losing my mother, I was determined to follow in the footsteps, in the examples of Asawa and Albers. That is to make lemons out of make lemonade out of bitter lemons, the loss. While healing from post-surgery pain, I asked a few of my women in my circle if they had cleaned their COVID closets of old bras, and if they had old bras that they could pass on to me. Shopping at that time was not an option. Well, my sisterhood stepped up, leaving tender gifts at the door, small bags of snazzy, lacy, forlorn, and stretched out intimate apparel became the source that I'd formally examined as a primary art material. I delved into a series of strange decision-making questions, aesthetic questions. With scissors and X-Acto knives, I undid the bras, questioning whether cups or no cups, underwires, black, or making it all black or exposing colors. I cut all decorations away. I discarded the breast cloth. Was I straddling or confusing breast cancer with lung cancer, or did that matter? Laid out on my studio floor, I was interested in the lines and the curves, how they felt like writing, like calligraphy. I knotted, dyed, and painted them, sewing through the layers. I wondered, should this be by hand or on a sewing machine, and hand won. I developed a vocabulary of abstraction. It was important to me that it not look like an obvious feminist artwork, that something requiring more so a slow walk or an invitation to meditate on the body. I was quite interested when viewers initially saw the piece as having been made from dog leashes or perhaps horse bridles. It was until the bra hooks poked out and sparked people's cognition. For few who'd experienced criminal justice system, as lawyers or visitors, there was a certainty that this sculpture recalled prison life, where women visitors are forced to leave their bras at the prison gate, as the underwire could be used as a weapon. At this time, a dear friend repeated a phrase to me from Ruth Asala. It had a phrase that had been offered to her decades earlier when they were both ill. The phrase became this title: "When I see you, the sky is blue. When I don't see you, the sky is blue." With what sounded like a Zen koan, which is a kind of wise phrase, I found it was a steadying gift, guiding me across an ocean replete with paradox and ambiguity. Of 5 siblings, we were raised inside of a large family. Meals and conversations ranged widely and politically, while covering not only what had happened to our people over millennia, but an ongoing inquiry and exposure to histories of other persecuted people. Today, our Passover includes these same conversations with pledges to participate in our communities and continue to deal with the values. We debate the critiques of how leaders of a powerful country such as the United States, proud of its democratic values, can rain down cruelty on the less powerful. That is a reference both to the United States, but also to Israel. Now, for more than 40 years in San Francisco, with my designer, builder husband, we've raised activist sons in our own secular left-wing family. The awareness and the actions that we address related to suffering among the most vulnerable among us is an ongoing work. On October 7th, my husband, Jeff, and I were in Japan, having Having just spent days in Hiroshima, still reeling from that most intense, effective anti-war museum that I had ever seen, the Japanese cry for never again hit especially hard. The shock of the bloodshed in Israel, and then within days, and now this impossibly long retribution, the ongoing utter destruction in Gaza by Israel, supported by the United States, has been unbearable for all, however differently we absorb it. Of course, it led me to deeply question how I would and could participate in the Jewish Museum exhibit. My concerns were so generously met by the director, the curator, and the staff. It was an unprecedented open door for dialogue. Can't thank them enough for that. I don't know how many questions, how much rage and shame was vented and responded to, but I know that the concerns and the protests have been significant. I cannot say enough praise for how you've handled and worked by offering us ways to find the best path forward, to show our artwork in this time, which could not have been perfect. This wrestling for a just way is perhaps our best and our most Jewish characteristic.